we hear seen this in other languages. So this in JavaScript is slightly different than other languages, sometimes in confusing manners, but hopefully by the end of this lecture, it will not be confusing. So this basically refers to an object that's set at the creation of a new execution context, or in other words, a function invocation, or in other words, another stack frame on that stack that we drew earlier today. And in the global execution context, or basically the window console, or the node REPL, or the function that is invoked in node, it refers to the global object. And if a function is called as a method of an object, or in other words, a method is basically a term for a key value pair in an object where the value is a function, that key is considered a method. So if a function is called as a method of an object, this is bound to that object that the function is called on. So what the heck does that mean? Well, so let's just demonstrate in node. If we just type this, we get back that big global object. In the console, browser console, if we type this, we get back that window. So as we discussed last week, we saw that window was indeed the global object in the scope of the browser console. And how might we write something such that this gets bound to other objects? So let's write 12, this. Cool. And so I mentioned that if a function is called as a method of an object, this, the keyword this, gets bound to the method that the function is called on, or the object that the method is called on. So let's just create some objects. So let's do const person is somebody with a name, and let's have a function called greet. So on line 3, I'm using this thing called this.name. And this is part of a function which is defined as a method on this object. Remember, a method is just a key where the value is a function. And so in this case, person.greet is considered a method because greet is this function. And so if we call person.greet, this gets bound to person. And so this.name becomes the value of person.name, which in this case is Jordan. So if we were to run this, we see Jordan gets printed. Let's make this more of a greet by doing hello. Then we see hello, Jordan. But what happens if we wanted to do something like this? What might we expect to happen in this case? So we declare this global const called greet, global meaning it's outside the other object, and we set it equal to person.greet. And so basically, greet right now is a function that console.logs hello this.name. So what is this in that case? So first we have to find where is this function getting invoked. That's at line 10, right? It gets defined at line 8, but it gets invoked at line 10. And so what is the value of this here? Yeah, it's a global object. And so what is the value of this.name? So yeah, name is not actually a key on that global object. And so if we try to dereference a key that doesn't exist on an object, we get undefined. And so if we do this, we're going to get hello undefined. Does that make sense? But what if we were to create some other object called student? Let's call it friend. And a friend has a different name. But their name is David. And now if we did something like friend.greet equals person.greet. So now what do we expect to happen? So where does greet, in this case, get invoked? Line 14. And what is it getting invoked on? Right now it's a method of another object, right? And so what object is that? Well, that's friend. And so what does this get bound to? It gets bound to friend. And so what is friend.name? In this case, it should be David. So let's try running this. We get hello, David. Does that make sense? So now, yeah?
You could also be really explicit instead of saying this. You could just reference the sort of context as you're typing. You know what the development context is. Right? So is this, should it be thought of as just a useful shortcut? Or?
So the question is, for the camera, should it be thought of as some sort of useful shortcut? In a way, yes. It's a way of declaring, of using a variable, and we don't yet know exactly what that variable is going to be bound to. Because in the case of person, we know that this.name is going to be equal to that person. But that's not always the case, right? As we saw, if we take this greet method on person and assign it to friend, this.name is not person.name. In that case, it's going to be friend.name. And so it's kind of a way of using a value that we don't yet know what it's going to be until we go ahead and invoke that function. And when we start handling events and stuff in React and stuff like that, we'll see, or even React components and stuff like that, which is coming in the next lecture, we'll start to see exactly why this, the keyword called this, is useful.